everybody. So we have our penultimate session coming up for the day program of this year's Set Tech Festival. And I'm really excited to welcome to the stage now Bradley Mundt, who's the CEO and founder of Plan B Net Zero. And he's going to be interviewed by Alex Khripko, who's the founder of Bloom Climate Studio. And Alex, I also want to share as a former colleague here at Dana. So it's really, really fantastic to have her back for our 10th anniversary celebration. Alex is going to be interviewing Bradley, and they're going to be talking about the topic of next generation energy in this upcoming deep dive from grid to network. Give them both a big round of applause, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the intro. I just want to say it's really lovely to be back here. It's been 10 years of SET, which is pretty crazy because I still remember building this project in its scrappier days. Wasn't as professional as it is now, so kudos to the team. And I think this comes full circle a little bit because I remember back then we were really thinking about innovation and energy just kind of in its infant stages. And there was the smart meter kind of craze. And it's really cool to see how it's developed, the evolution. And I think this fits our talk so well today because here we have a company that's really disrupting, innovating the field, taking inspiration from other sectors. I'd love to invite Bradley Mundt, the CEO and founder of Plan B Net Zero, on stage. Yeah. Hi.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Yeah, so maybe we just begin talking a little bit about, your company. It's grown very quickly. It's been very successful, so that's great. And I want to talk a little bit about, your background and how you kind of, went from day trading, as I understand, to forming an energy company, and one that is quite different than maybe the status quo that we see in the incumbents companies. And just give a little bit of intro to Plan B Net Zero.
Okay, so it's a bit difficult, I think. The first thing first, because you were talking about day trading, that's very funny because honestly, they have close to nothing in common. I come from a family of, different business people and all. Pretty much every part of my family are business people. So there comes a certain mindset with it and all. But the main thing was honestly just the fact that I want to do my own thing. I'm someone which has a hard time, just keeping a standard 9-to-5 job. That's the full honesty. And there were a few little things. So I got into it because of a discussion with a couple of friends of mine. And it was perfectly in time when the Ukraine-Russia war started. And so prices spiked. A lot of problems all around came by, whether it's political or straight up in the private household and all. But there were so many aspects, reference points to see this from with problems and all. And so we got the idea. And the next morning I pretty much woke up wanting to do something just because I thought, okay, there's a proper opportunity here where, funnily enough, the energy market, its volatility or the way that you work with it is similar to the day trading part, just with much less intensity. But there's a huge thing which the big electricity providers or suppliers fail in seeing. So there's a huge gap, and this is the gap which we're filling.
Great. And maybe diving a bit deeper into Neo Energy, which is the energy product that you're offering. Why bring this, and how are you bringing this into a deeply regulated, competitive market?
It's a very easy concept. Basically, what I would even say with my team straight up, we recognized is the fact that this industry is completely missing out on this opportunity worldwide. It's non-existent. The concept behind neo-energy is the fact that within electricity customers, so that everyone properly understands, you have so many things which you can know about a customer so reliably. So in a sense, already when you get a new electricity supplier, I instantly know, just from the comparison side, for example, where you live, what your consumption is, thus what your bill is. And so I have a pretty good set of basic data which I can work with to then know when you go on holiday, you know, what kind of lifestyle you have and so on. And so from this point on, you can really build up on this with hardware and with the data which you get from the hardware to then really get amazing, let's say, adjacent opportunities in services and products which you can give to this customer. So the base to neo-energy truly is setting an all-digital platform which has not existed until now, to be more attractive, to be more accessible for the customers, and so on and so forth.
Right, and that's why you're also calling this a lifestyle product in a sense, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think maybe one other point here is I want to dive deeper on the digital value for the customer specifically. So if we're talking about, I mean, you know, we're living in a time where often the grid, it could be unreliable, that we're looking at, yeah, basically instability, blackouts, depending where you are. So yeah, can you just talk a little bit about how you're kind of using this architectural data to support that and improve the customer?
Yeah, so the first part is that we actually come from, initially we come from, let's say, a slightly different industry, where it was more about actually the hardware. So it was solar panels, heat pumps, battery energy storage systems, and so on. And so if you merge this with the electricity supplier, you actually have full control over local production, or at least you have a high level of control of what is being produced locally, let's say in a household, if you take an image of a classic house with a family living in it, and then what the person uses in electricity, what their bill is like, at what price they work at, and so on. And so building up from this, you go into all different types of ways, especially now, talking about all the wars and all, you keep seeing the same thing, and it's that you really need more self-sufficiency, whether it's on a national basis to the whole continent or whatever type of you know, build we're talking about, all the way down to a single, let's say even apartment whatsoever. You were talking about blackouts, and for example, at the beginning of the year here in Berlin, I think in the second week or something, the west of Berlin, I wasn't here, but I have been told, the west of Berlin has had a full-on blackout for like a week. And so what's really interesting here is to see how psychologically it affects the people in the way that they have a very high level of comfort and, you know, standard of what they require and want and need. And it's funny because most people talking about this were saying that their biggest concern was the fact that they didn't have internet, but which is fairly funny. But this is pretty much the perspective which I see this from. So you're talking about the fact that for us doing B2C, B2B, and even B2G, at the end of the day, it's really just about being able to give a certain level of, let's say, again, autonomy, self-sufficiency, and safety especially, whether it's on the level of the government or personally.
Right. And I guess I'm curious then, underpinning all of this, maybe let's do a tech pivot. Yeah, if we look under the hood then of neo-energy, yeah, what does that architecture actually look like? What is that data? What can you say about that?
It's, I'll be very honest about this, so I'm not my CTO. I have a CTO for this. I have a whole team, IT team and everything for this. But basically, it's just two layers. So the base one is the electricity supplier, which is just a normal one, just like any traditional one which you can find. And what we do is that from day one, we said, okay, we want this new energy platform. We want this digital aspect. We want this new generation. That's the main thing. My whole team has the mindset of fulfilling this evolution, in a sense, in the industry, which is non-existent, just because it has so many advantages, and there's no reason not to be transparent. There's not a single reason not to be fair with each and every customer. If you look at the big five in Germany, for example, they're working with old prices and everything. It's a super difficult, there's no proper legitimate reason for them to be still making customers pay this much, to not have this fairness, to not have this transparency. It's so easy, it takes nothing, it's an app. You can get an app in every corner and so on. And so this is the base which we set. And so we said we have the electricity supplier, we then have the digital platform, and from here we have all the branches, talking about the APIs, talking about different softwares which merge into one, different algorithms and so on. So the actual tech aspect, and that's where it gets really complex. But yeah, I think there's no need to dive that deeply into it.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting what you said, because effectively we only go and look at our kind of energy, if there is a web platform for it, if we look at our consumption when something goes wrong,
exactly.
Right? We're not opening it otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite interesting. But amongst kind of the algorithms, the data, of course your CTO is probably very busy. What would you say if there were any kind of a challenge you experienced in terms on the technical side, on the data side, underpinning that?
There are two different things here. The technical side specifically, I would say, is the really problematic one, because I think that's more about I think you call it like the grid management facility. So that's where you're dependent on. As an electricity supplier, you're dependent on that facility, the grid facility. So that means that they have the data which is running through their systems. They're the ones which are actually measuring the use and then give that over to you. Problem is, if you now want to work with data, you of course have to get it from them. So depending on whatever tools they use, what their process standard is, being old or new, again, getting back to APIs, perfect example, and so on, you're limited to whatever their limitations are. So that's something which is very difficult, because you're fully dependent without any option, because the thing is, to change this management facility, it takes around 6 months. Talking about now scaling, with our goal of having an IPO in September and so on, you are going to very, very complex and risky processes, which, take a lot of time.
Okay, so then tell us, basically, for your future vision, how are you going to manage, energy supply, software development, enhancement, but still not costing your customer that experience?
I think, I don't want to be too quick about this, I think it's fairly easy, because we're a fairly young team. I have my head of marketing here, for example. She's also my age. I'm 26. A lot of my team is, I would say, sub 35. And the good news is that we all think alike. We're like a big family. We all have the mindset that we are trying to solve this problem by looking at the things out of the perspective, out of the eyes of the customer, not out of the business. And so we're really doing it for the customers. So everyone's Polestar, in a sense, is that, doing it digitally for the customers, attractive communication and so on, everything which belongs to Neo Energy. And then I think the big basic thing is the fact that we have small teams everywhere with their set goals, which I incentivize to have their own goals and do their own things, perform by themselves. And so at the end of the day, everyone is looking at Neo Energy, has that as their title, but then again works in their fields with their own goals, whether it's acquiring customers, developing the apps or the software, and so on.
Great. And I guess, for your current and future customers, what do you see for them in 5 years then using new energy?
I think that's a that's a very difficult question to ask me as the founder, because of course my vision is endless. But I would say the vision here is to truly change the way that this industry works worldwide. I'm saying this not because I'm some crazy visionary, but I'm saying this because whomever I talk to, whether it's analysts of wherever, or a bank, or even the stock market, talking about different ones, this just doesn't exist. So you can set a new standard. This is what we're trying to do. This is honestly, we're on a good path to do this. And so what I'm really trying to do is set this new standard of ease and transparency in the world when it comes to the energy.
And I think maybe as we slowly wrap up, I just taking a few, having a few takeaways here. So, because it sounds a bit like you're also talking to the incumbent industry as you're talking right now. You want to make a bigger change industry-wide. And so kind of what takeaways can you then share, let's say first on the technical side, in your time, and then also on the customer side, in short?
I think it's very difficult to answer this because then again, I don't know who's sitting here and what field they come from and how they, what perspective they listen to this from. But I would say what is important for everybody is to see how much the standard of the new generation is just becoming a more and more dominant thing. Everything is changing towards this fairness, towards the transparency. So honestly, it's not even me having this mindset. I'm having this mindset because I'm a gamer, because I'm a guy which is on the apps, which is on social media. So I know what the people are looking for, how the people speak, and so on. And so whomever does not alter their ways and processes this way is truly just going to stay stuck. So that's the only thing which I would give away.
I love that. So we're telling the energy companies to cater a bit to Gen Z, right?
Definitely.
Coming through with it.
A bit of a cliche, but definitely.
But yeah. Okay, great. I mean, since we're closing out the day and kind of coming to an end here, I think this is actually such a nice way to end it, like talking about, the next generation, taking them into account to avoid falling behind. And I think what you're doing is super cool.
Thank you very much.
And congrats on what you've built so far. And you'll be around if people would like to chat with you?
Definitely. I just got here, so I'm not too sure, but I guess I'll just be in front.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this, and thank you for the opportunity.